Testing, testing, testing.
This is it. This my If you'd please take your seat. I'd like to call this meeting to order. I want to thank you all for coming. And for those who are watching, the first order of business is the invocation. And I'm happy to invite Reverend Tim Davis, who's the pastor of the First Baptist Church on Lord Street, to do the invocation. Are you ready, sir? There's a little button up there that you need to push. If you would all stand, please.
Our Father in heaven, I come, O Lord, humbly bowed and thankful to have an invitation to come in tonight and pray for this meeting and the citizens of Southport, O Lord. We pray that everyone will be respectful to one another, that the board will be respectful to the people that speak, and the people that speak will be respectful to the board. We have elected this board for the benefit of Southport, and their agenda is to take care of Southport and do what is best for Southport. So, Lord, let us have decency and order in this place. And one of the virtues of character is self-control. And let us have control this night, and that your spirit is here, Lord. Your spirit is resting upon this building and upon all these people that are gathered here. For I pray for peace. In Jesus' name I pray. And the people of God said, Amen. Thank you.
All right, we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. If you remain standing, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm going to ask your indulgence as I go through a couple of things just to make sure everybody's on the same page here. First thing I'm going to read is the conflict of interest statement. If any members know of any conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest concerning matters on this agenda, please so state at this time. Not seeing any. If one arises later on, please just raise your hand and we'll take it up at that point. So on the agenda, it talks about public comment, and we'll have public comment. However, if you're here for the parking issue, and if you don't mind, could I just see how many people, could you raise your hand, how many people are here for that? Well, look at that. I'm going to ask you that you hold off on your public comment until we get to agenda number 1. We're going to take an action at that time. It may answer all of your questions. And so at the end of our action during that time frame, if there's other comments that you want to make about public comment, please feel free to do it at that time. And then we'll take the public comment on all the other agenda items at their normal place on the agenda. So I'll entertain a motion to go into public comment.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Madam Clerk?
Ms. Kim Sirkin.
Nothing like going first. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Aldermen. I am here not on the paid parking tonight. I'm excited to hear what some of our residents have to say about that. But I'm here as a taxpayer of Southport. I live at 6243 Cottage Creek Lane in Indigo. And those of you who don't know me, which I think is only a few of you tonight, lots of familiar faces. I'm here to speak about the increase in rates for the community building where we're all sitting and we all enjoy. And not only am I a native here, but I've also worked professionally in about 500 weddings in this building. So it's a very familiar space to me. I deeply value this facility. It's one of my absolute favorites. My company recommends this facility very regularly. And the new rates that are being recommended are very out of touch with what is able to be accommodated in this area. The comps that I feel like were probably used have a lot to offer that this facility does not. A few of those would be a larger bridal suite, one that would also accommodate for hair and makeup, The lack of a green space and down the street 3 blocks away, that's not sufficient. We can't have photographers and videographers running all over town. As well as the fact that we have music restrictions. We can't have music outside after 8 p.m. and there's not a single venue really anywhere that I've ever worked that enforces that, especially not one that would be looking to charge $7,500 to rent the space. Yes. Yeah. It's a little shy of 4,000 if you're a local resident, but 7,500 if you're not. And by local, I mean you pay city taxes. Me too. So capacity issues being another. Some of these venues that I feel like have been used as comps, they adequately and spaciously hold 180 to 400 guests indoors, whereas here, more than about 130 for a seated dinner is very tight. And more than 180 for what we would call cocktail style, where folks are not seated for dinner, starts to get congested, as well as you have to have an indoor rain plan. So you don't want to get too tight, or as I tell couples, you'll have a really expensive frat party instead of a wedding. The maintenance here needs to be handled before we handle any rate increases of any significance. The outside deck needs to be replaced, or at least very much looked over and repaired. And there is not a single couple, let me not say not a single, 5% of the couples that we talk to do not ask, can these flags come down? The flags and the seal, if we were going to charge anything close to $7,500, that's a non-negotiable. Let's see, is there anything else? Oh, there's no space for vendors here. We don't really have anything other than our storage space for photographers to put equipment. And there's definitely nowhere for vendors to eat. When we have bands and kind of full vendor counts, sometimes that's up to 18 to 20 vendors, and there's not adequate space. We will eat on the deck, but again, in bad weather, there's just not room for us. I think that's about it. I am more than happy to offer my expertise. Like I said, I've done this for a very long time. I remember the original community building and was working here with my dad all the way back when. And so I would love to sit down with you and offer advice on, what I feel like a fair rate increase would be, so that it would not really, truly make this a space that's out of reach, definitely for our locals, but most definitely anyone who's traveling is not going to spend $7,500. They're going to look elsewhere immediately. So thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, could you just hold up for a second? Just to clarify the agenda, because I've been looking at it all day, so it's in my head, but I have to admit that I want to make sure that it's everybody's clear. There's a number of public hearings on this agenda, and I'm going to go over them really quickly. So you may want to hold your comments until that public hearing space comes up. And technically how we do it is I entertain a motion for opening a public hearing on, let's say, energy rates. And when we get done with that conversation, then we close it and we open it up for the next one. Procedurally, that's how we do it. But there's so many on this agenda that I want to make sure they're all clear. So there's one on energy rates, there's one on the budget, there's a public hearing on the zone text amendment for conditional zoning. There's one on the development agreement for waterway, and there's a hearing on a conditional zoning amendment for the waterway that Planning Director Mohan is going to give. So if you have topics, if you have conversation on those topics, you may want to hold until we get into that specific area. If you have other public comments when the clerk calls your name, if you want to pass your spot, you'll still retain it when we come up on this. Ma'am, it's...
Ms. Bonnie, you want to wait for the budget hearing? Okay. Ms. Renee Ward, I can't understand what your topic is. Businesses?
This is about the parking.
About the parking, okay. And then I have another parking budget. And then Terry Pierce. So you want to wait for that one? Okay. So everybody's going to wait then.
All right. So the next thing we're going to do is the approval of the, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
So move.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any conversation?
Yes. Um, For the, 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5 public hearings, typically we do not vote on the night that we have the public hearing unless there's just no public comment. We have generally thought that we want some time to reconsider anything, to absorb what the public has told us. And if there's information that has arisen that we need to have staff further explore, then we don't vote until the next meeting. Our next meeting is in 10 days. It's on the 23rd. So I move that we hold voting on the items for public, that have public hearing tonight until June the 23rd meeting.
Technically, that's not a motion, right? So we have a motion on the table,
Right.
which we have to,
You have a motion
so-
to approve right now. That's on the table.
yeah,
Okay.
and I'm comfortable with,
Could I make it as an amendment? Hmm? Okay, I'll rescind the motion until after we've approved the agenda.
Yes, ma'am. All in favor of the motion to approve the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous. The next one is to,
Mr.
actually,
Mayor,
I think.
I make a motion that I just made. Motion to hold voting on the public hearing items until June the 23rd.
Is there a second to that motion? There's no second to the motion, so the item,
I'll second it so we can
Discuss it?
discuss it. Yeah,
Okay.
discussion.
there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I think that Alderman Davis's point is that this board imposed that guideline, and for the purpose of transparency, we shouldn't pick and choose how we apply it.
Well said, thank you.
All in favor of the motion as it is, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Sorry, Karen, I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. So it's 3-3? Okay. For purposes of transparency, I will go with Alderman Davis's motion. I do think, though, that we've had quite a lot of talk on these topics already, but we'll put it off for the next 10 days. And if you wish to have more discussion on it on the 23rd of June, it's in this building, sir? Or is it Indian Trail? It's an Indian Trail, but keep an eye out. We may have to move it to this building for just space-wise. So we'll postpone all the votes until the 23rd. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, in your line number 2 resolution requesting the assistance of from the state for stormwater needs. That was a letter that was sent from a local homeowners association asking us to join in with them to ask the state to build a bridge at the Bonnets Creek Landing, which is really backing up with a lot of the stormwater flow. And we're just basically acknowledging that letter and agreeing that we need that to move forward. Is that correct?
That is correct. So if we fix and we are going to fix, like up at Fodell, the hospital, all that flooding up there, which we have hopefully we'll get a grant money in October to start doing that. If you fix it upriver, then you're just pushing more water down. If you can't get the water out of town, then it just backs up lower in town. The reason why the logic, and there is logic why we're doing what we're doing, is that we were competing with a bunch of other jurisdictions for money. And the hospital gave us the most points on the grant application. So we got the grant application because the hospital is impacted by the flooding. So we're going to work on redoing all the pipes on Fodell and redoing the water, and hopefully between the ditch and the water and the pipes will abate most of the flooding. I can't tell you if we have 40 inches what will happen, and so this, as it gets down to it all goes into Bonnets Creek. So we have 3 creeks. Those are our outflows for the entire town. So on that side of town, in the middle, it goes to Bonnets Creek, and it clogs up there because the culvert is too small. And every time it rains heavily, the road collapses. So we're asking the state for money to do that because it's a state road. Okay.
Appreciate that. If there were members in the audience, I didn't want them to go short because of the crowd.
Right.
Thank you.
All right. All in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Now, the first agenda item is paid parking.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to table any further discussions regarding paid parking until a time when I'm no longer on this board.
You know, my sarcasm is, are we voting to get you off the board, or are we voting for the motion? But that's just my sarcasm. So is there a second to that motion? There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I would like to say this, in November last year, 6 months ago, well, 7, we paid good money, $50,000 for an independent consultant's report, which is 50 some odd pages long. And on page 7, it says very clearly, we do not recommend paid parking at the front. That report is on our website, correct, Mr. City Manager?
It is, and we'll make sure it's in the space where
Prominent
everybody
place,
can see.
easy to find.
Absolutely.
Okay. And this report went into great comprehensive detail. They looked at everything imaginable, including golf cart. I mean, bicycles, how long people tend to stay in a parking space, and on and on and on. Why would we have gotten this and then think about just casting it aside?
Alderman
Further-
Carroll, did you have further?
Yeah, I do. I would just like to say that we do listen to you guys, and we are you guys. I am a member of the chamber myself. I'm a small business owner. We often, also, nobody called me. Not a single phone call.
My phone ran off the hook.
Good. I'm more than happy to explain to you all that we have regular presentations from vendors about a lot of things. And so this just happened to be one that grew legs. And so anytime you hear something, do not hesitate to call me or anybody else on this board so that we can try to end that early so that this doesn't happen. But I appreciate y'all being here. If this vote goes the way we think it's going to go, y'all are happy to go home if you'd like, or you can stick around and have some fun.
If you were at that meeting or watched it or go home and watch it, it was a sales pitch. That was it. This parking company want our business.
All right, for transparency though, we really all have to understand this. I personally was not a fan of paid parking, so I'm not saying these words because I'm disappointed. But all municipalities have very limited avenues of revenue based on the way North Carolina is set up. We have ad valorem tax, that's your home tax. And if you all go to our ABC store and buy liquor, we get money for that. But basically after that, it's very limited. It comes in little pieces other places, but we really don't have the opportunity And I welcome all of you to entertain and bring to us your ideas of how we're going to pay for some of our future endeavors. One of them, and I've already spoken to the chief, the fire chief on this, is going to be fire department. Our volunteer base is drying up. It's retiring. And we're going to have to hire more firemen across the state. It's probably the single biggest cost that's going to be facing the state of North Carolina, because we're going from a pretty much a volunteer system to a paid system because not enough young blood coming into the system. So every year or every other year, I suspect that Chief Drew will be coming in here asking for more slots. And we're going to have to decide how we do that. And I welcome all of your ideas about how we might do that. Because right now, it's to raise your ad valorem tax. And I don't think any of us really want that. So I welcome, and as we go down the road, perhaps you might want to write a letter to our representatives in Raleigh to talk about a prepared food tax, which would really $1 on a $100 bill. That's all it is. So, but if you've got other ideas, we're more than happy to welcome them.
Mr. Mayor, since we do have a packed house of business owners, let's talk about sales tax a little bit and how that works. Maybe Alderman Kelly would like to talk about that?
So one of the beautiful things about how Brunswick County is set up is even though Southport is sort of the downtown of Brunswick County and we generate a lot of the sales tax here, sales tax in Brunswick County is distributed based on population, which means our small population of taxpayers in Southport only gets a very, very small amount of the sales tax that we generate here in town. So St. James gets more than we do, even though we create it. And Oak Island gets more than we do, and BSL gets more than we do. So you have to think about that when we're looking at our budget and everybody goes, oh, we've got all these businesses in town, we should have the tax base. Well, everyone wants to come to Southport because of our businesses, because of our waterfront, because of what you guys have done and created here. I grew up here and I remember when downtown was a whole lot of closed up businesses. I am thankful that we have a reason for people to come to Southport, and you guys have done such a beautiful job creating that. Unfortunately, the way that the tax dollars are distributed, we don't get to see the fruits of our labors, so to speak, here in Southport. So that's something that you can talk to our county commissioners about how the tax is distributed, as well as our state level representatives, because I know personally, I would love to see the taxes that I collect at my business here in Southport to come back to Southport, but we only get a very, very small amount of that because we have such a small population in our corporate city limits. So please keep that in mind. And I know you guys are able to be very vocal. I would love for you guys to share the strong feelings that I have about that with our county and state level representatives, because at the end of the day, we're generating it here. The people are coming to town to take part of everything that we have here, but they're taking it back with them because we have such a small population. So keep that in the back of your mind and help us help you, please. Thank you.
Any other comment? I do want to take a moment and thank the Mayor Pro Tem Kelly, because she's the one who suggested that we put this on the agenda today. So thank you very much, Rebecca. Okay, all in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye. Any opposed? It's 5-1. All right, next, I entertain a motion to go into public hearing in reference to the energy rates. Yes, I'm sorry. Let's take a 10-minute recess so that those who want to get up and leave can go. Now I'm going to have a word.
How you guys doing? Good. How are you? I'm doing great. I'm retired.
How are you?
Nobody said no. Nobody said no. Yeah. I'm glad to see you guys. Good to see you. Bless all. Bless you. Yeah. Would you like to go to the U.S. Congress and give an invocation? No. That's what we did. I'm with
That's something that can't hurt. And this happens over and over again.
And I'm noticing how people are here. You know, people.
No one's here for work. That's what they know, but I mean, it's not the people that were here for parking, look.
Staff says he knows it's
You should, it's a great. The paper, press the paper, Bob Lincoln wrote a bit on it. And,
learning process.
yeah. I know, but it's time.
Yeah, it's not. Now, you understand right, that precipitating
Got started with, yeah, and then the way they were acting towards y'all. But,
well, I don't represent that.
I know, but, well, them, excuse me, them, not y'all. Yeah. Yeah, no, you represent the city, but you're part of that process.
Right. Okay.
All right, if everybody would start taking their seats again, please. Please take your seats.
I'm glad I don't have, I can do it.
All right, everybody. Let's get down to the meat and potatoes. If I could have your attention, please. I'll entertain a motion to go into public hearing on the energy rates.
So move.
Is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. Madam Clerk, is there anybody here to speak on the energy rates?
Not the energy rates, no, just the budget.
Then if the board has no discussion on it, I would entertain a motion to close public hearing on energy rates.
Second.
Any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. I entertain a motion to go into public hearing on the budget. There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. City Manager Saldo, are you ready, sir?
I am. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. As per our last meeting of my proposed budget, I'm proud to present a budget this year that includes no tax increases and no use of general fund balance to continue to operate our wonderful city at our high response rates for our high level of service we offer the community. Going forward, we after tonight's public hearing, again, we'll have that adoption vote at your June 23rd meeting and proceed forward with that. We've got some good things in the budget, including the new software that will help us out with the budget going forward. We remain in a strong fund balance position, so we're in great financial shape operationally. As the mayor and the board mentioned earlier with the paid parking conversation, they were operationally good. In the out years, as we look to invest in critical needs such as infrastructure, other big ticket items like stormwater, which is a big concern for the citizens, that's an estimate for the stormwater of about $30 million. So as we look forward to come up with some of those alternate streams of revenue, or look how we can give from this general fund to pay for some of those projects, and then grants that we're pursuing. So we're in great financial shape operationally, but looking forward, we'll look for new ways to increase our capital spending on our budget going forward to get some of these projects complete. So that's all I have at this time. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, is there anybody who's here to speak on the budget?
Yes, Miss Bonnie Bray.
Turned it off. Good evening, Mayor and Alderman Bonnie Bray, 515 Quartermaster Drive in Southport. I'm glad there isn't any parking revenue in the budget. That's one good thing. I gave you all some very specific questions during the break. They're about items throughout the budget. I have some concerns, and I definitely reading through the budget in the last, since Noah delivered it, and it was posted online, there are so many things that need some explanation, I think, because there are just so many things. Work rents comp is way up. Contract services have skyrocketed. There's a bunch of different things, and I'm not going to go into all those questions tonight, but I gave them to you because I hope that you will discuss these things during the hearing, because I think people deserve to know. And if you choose not to do that, and God forbid, if you pass the budget as is, I was thinking June 23rd would give you time to answer them so that we could then talk about them. You could, press your case if you like the budget the way it is now. Press your case before June 23rd, because the budget doesn't have to be passed before June 23rd, not before June 30th. You're having a public hearing and plenty of time. So now's the time for the public to enter into the conversations that you have had over these past many months. Let me say, I don't think you should pass it until you can explain the answers to these questions. There are a couple of things that I would point out. In particular, there's a 419, well, first of all, this exists in an atmosphere of incredulity, because 3 weeks ago, the city was facing a $1.4 million deficit. And then miraculously, a couple of weeks ago, when it was first, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, all of a sudden we have a very robust financial picture. We have tons of money in the general fund. We have well over the 55% required that you all have required to keep in the fund balance. Everybody's getting raises. Everybody is getting COLAs. Not everybody's getting merit raises, but merit raises are going to go to quite a few people, most likely, and everybody's getting a COLA. Those didn't even exist 3 weeks ago. I don't understand it, and I think you need to explain. That is the biggest thing hanging over our heads. A $64,000 question. I was at the meeting when the proposed budget was presented by the interim city manager, and there was not an explanation, any kind of explanation in detail about where the 1.4 million, if it ever existed, but where did it come from? So a couple of big ticket items may suggest, I don't know what. There looks like there's $419,000 from the Powell bill monies that can only be used for paving and making sidewalk improvements, yet it is going to be increasing revenue in the general fund, which will be used for any manner of other things, not paving, not sidewalks, but the general fund, general revenue goes toward paying for finance department, administration, board of aldermen, any number of things that have to do with the general government needs. It is not paving and it is not sidewalks. Meanwhile, there's 150,000 coming out of for paving and 150,000 for sidewalk improvements coming out of the capital fund, and the streets department is getting this year's take on Powell bill 179,000, and there are no expenditures in the street department budget for paving or sidewalk improvements. That doesn't make any sense. And how Powell bill money is going into general fund, I'll never know. There's a grant in the general revenue for $300,000. It's unlabeled. Don't know what that is. these are simple questions, I would imagine, for either the finance director or the interim city manager to answer tonight for the hearing, especially if you think you're going to vote on it. We need an explanation. So this $300,000 grant exists in the budget, in the general revenue, and in the budget message that precedes the actual numbers. There is a $400,000 ARPA grant that isn't represented in the general, anywhere that I could find. So if you take 419,000 from Powell bill money, $300,000 grant for who knows what, $400,000 grant for ARPA money, American Rescue Plan, back during COVID. It's a last year for that. So I don't, it's, what am I trying to say? It's frustrating because there isn't the kind of information that you would hope that would be out there. If we're not in a hurry to pass the budget, let's get answers for these questions. Then the thing that really made me want to speak out about this tonight is I attended a meeting a couple of weeks ago where victims of flooding in the Fodale area, all the people whose backyards are, in front of that ditch, Mark spoke about them. This is a longstanding problem that used to be mitigated, at least, by the city cleaning out the ditch. The ditch is on city property. I know you guys are working on the brick grant. I know you guys are working on fixing the Steed Bonnet area where it all the, the water is, seeking high, lower ground. So these people that came, it was heartbreaking because they were very articulate. They spoke well. They were respectful. And there's nothing for flood mitigation in this budget. There's the regular stormwater program, but these people, it's one of the people who testified that he himself had been a member of Public Works and it had taken him an hour and a half to regularly clean out the ditch. Because what happens is the water flows and all the crap that comes out of people's houses that ends up floating around. It's not water, it's everything that goes along with what happens when people's homes flood. It's a terrible situation and it shouldn't exist in any civilized society. You can put some money, if we've got all this money over and above what is required for the general fund, you can certainly put some money in this budget now to help those people, because the brick money is not coming until when? October? We're in hurricane season. It is only going to get worse. So that's where my energy comes from. There's roads that need, the park or the Yopon extended that road. We're always crying. Elected officials are regularly and repeatedly crying poor mouth when it comes to fixing things that people need fixed. And you could at least take steps to, so that people recognize that you heard them and that you've got a plan. It's not, if you want a presentation, don't do paid parking, how can we do a temporary fix on this ditch until we get the money to fix the stormwater system. This is happening now for these people, and there's nothing nowhere in this budget. It is city-owned property, which is beyond belief that is left to be such a problem. Another thing, the young woman spoke earlier tonight about the rates that the city is expecting to charge for the community building use for weddings. The budget is $310,000, I think, the proposed budget, and right now this year it was $193,000. So that's another $100,000 that maybe this $1.4 million deficit, maybe that was part of the plug. Maybe that was a fix. I don't know. That's the problem. We don't know. And we deserve and need more explanation. This is our money. It is not your money. It is our money. Please respect that and give us an opportunity to tell you how we would like you to spend our money. With reason, obviously, within reason. You're working within the system, and for the most part, that we're stuck with that system, but you could allow more time for public comment. I would imagine that there is going to be a hue and cry once people hear that the attestation of the young woman earlier about the community building rates. Maybe most people don't know about it, but they'll know about it now. And I think you owe it to other people who, have something to say to step up and have the time and give them the courtesy of listening to them. So please do not pass this budget tonight. Please pay attention to the needs of the citizens. Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, is there anybody else on the budget?
Ms. Buchanan, you want to speak?
I'm going to be very brief.
Oh, dear. I'm going to be very brief, but I know that you all said come to us with solutions. And I do agree with you that, we need to help you be part of finding solutions. Now, you guys have already talked about, a couple of the good ones, but I want to just go back over what you mentioned, because the passion and the energy that I've seen go into the right-of-ways and, getting us to there, and then the parking, the time that we all spend on those things, I think that we all need to spend that same time on, and I know that you kind of said it, Michael, when you said we need to go to our state leaders, and I think you did too. I mean, I think what you all, I know you all mean that, but use us, put us together as an organized group. Let us help. If that means we need to go sit on the steps and get some press and get what we need to get what we deserve. We deserve, if we want to have a 1% food and beverage tax, we deserve that. Because that's what's best for our community, because we can't tax ourselves to death, and we do have to share that. And it's not us as businesses paying the tax. I know that because for the last 12 years, we've paid occupancy taxes. Well, we haven't paid it. We've collected it, and then we turned it in. And that's important money. 50,000 doesn't seem like that much, but you know what? We only have 4 rooms. So what about all the other entities out there? What about the hotels? What about the short-term rentals? What about those, So we pay 3%, or we collect 3% and turn it in. People might know that, but each one of our guests pay 10.75% in taxes. And we turn those in, and 3% goes to the city, 1% to the county, the rest to the state, the 2% to the county for sales. Well, could we raise it to 5%? Do I want to charge my clients or my guests another 2%? No, but I want everyone to pay what we need to have paid in order to make our city whole. So I think that that's really important. I know that when it goes to 5%, there's some kind of something else that's involved, but let's fight it. Let's put that same energy into what we're doing and fight it. Same with the 2%. That's crazy to have an allocation that's so antiquated that it's working off of population numbers when, that may have worked 50 years ago. But that doesn't work now. And we have to fight, and we all need to help fight. But we need to be coordinated. We need to be put together. We can't just say, yes, it's great to email or send a letter to our state officials. But, you can see the passion that was in this room for the thing that we all felt very passionate about. Use us, put us together. The business meeting that Noah and Elena are having coming up on Tuesday, talk about that, what we can do to help. I think that's important. And, look at those taxes, make people understand we're collecting them from the people who are using, it's a user tax. These things are important. I agree that balancing a budget is very difficult. I've never balanced a municipal budget, but I was in the corporate world for 25 years and I had to put my share of budgets together, and they're not fun. Every department, I understand, every department in the city had to go through a lot.
You had to go through a lot, and then you guys had to go through a lot. There's only two ways to get it, obviously, income and expenses. So when it comes to income, I'm just saying, we are here and we will help because we are tired of going through this. I don't want to read in the paper that everyone's excited that we balanced the budget. I think that that's great and kudos, but we shouldn't be having to look every year at a deficit. That's just not how you run a business. It's not how you run a municipality. So we need those revenue streams. So anyway, I said it wasn't going to be long, but I want you to know that I'm here to help. I'm here to help talk to other people to help. And I think that anybody in this town that loves this town realizes we can't keep raising taxes. We have to have this other revenue stream. So I will help you think out of the box. And I think the businesses will too. I wasn't really planning to talk, so I'm on this tiny little piece of paper, so I appreciate you letting me go off track a couple times, but thank you, and thank you for ultimately balancing the budget and hopefully getting us to the next stage, so.
Madam Clerk?
Terry Pierce, okay. That's all.
Okay, just a real quick feedback a little bit. How do we, no, we don't have a printing machine in the back room to print money. So that wasn't how we got the money. We got the money because we didn't know we were going to get the money. Because you remember, at the time that those discussions were taking place, the state had dragged their feet on giving us the money for the 441 acres. Well, they've given us the money. That's 600 and some odd $1,000. Also, another part of the state has DEQ. What?
We got the money recently this year.
But we didn't know that when we were having the original discussions. So I don't want to debate this with you. I'm just telling you, I'm answering your questions. So we got the $600,000. We're also going to get money from DEQ because we paid for a study for sewer, I believe it was, and they agreed to pay us back. And we had no idea when they were going to pay us back, but they're going to pay us back now. So that's $1 million. And so we were able, through the budget process, to figure out the other $400,000. So that's where that came from. That deck out there, $95,000. That's how much it costs to fix it, just so you know, have an idea of what that is. So, and on the ditches on Fodell Street, where we heard all the people, yes, we actually do listen to the people, as was evident tonight and as evident should be at every meeting. And there is a program underfoot to clear out the ditches. So all of that's an undertaken. We don't have to have a line item for everything, every item that we do. Okay, so next topic. No, ma'am.
Can
No,
I
ma'am,
say
you're
something?
done.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I'll review that. I'll
Absolutely.
email that to you, and then I'll respond on the 23rd. I'll say it publicly so everybody knows the answers.
I now entertain a motion to close public hearing on the budget. Motion is second. Is there any discussion? Not hearing it. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. I'll entertain a motion to have public hearing on the zoning text amendment for conditional zoning.
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Mo, the floor is yours, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the board. This item is a applicant-initiated text amendment. It is a legislative process, so a duly advertised public hearing prior to the decision is required. So the process that we are in is that we are at the public hearing session, and then the Board of Aldermen will make their final decision. So what is conditional zoning? So 2.11 is the conditional rezoning. And there's also the Appendix A of the Unified Development Ordinance that we're considering this evening. So Chapter 160D enables us to have zoning and including conditional zoning. Conditional zoning is a land use regulation process where property is rezoned with specific conditions or restrictions that are tailored to a proposed development. So this is designed for site-specific projects being constructed if approved, and is not a citywide zoning ordinance. It's just applied to the one site that it is approved for. It applies provides for flexibility if consistent with the adopted plans of the city and compatible with other uses and developments within the vicinity. So what is conditional zoning in Southport today? Conditional zoning is only considered in non-residential zoning districts and must include underlying zoning uses and dimensional standards. So the applicant cannot create their own standards or ask for conditions other than those that are allowed by the standards in the UDO currently. The applicant has proposed the following bullet points. It's just an outline of the main points of the language, and this language will replace the existing conditional zoning in the UDO itself. So this will repeal the whole 2.11. So they're going to be updating the purpose. The new conditional zoning districts will will allow non-residential and residential rezonings. It will allow the applicant to propose their own dimensional standards so that it does not have to be related and directly to the underlying zoning district. It will require a master development plan, a narrative of the project, and dimensional standards, including the conditions agreed upon by the local government and the applicant. Then they must also follow the submittal requirements found in 160D, which is the statute for enabling planning. There must be a public input meeting prior to the public hearing, which was held earlier. It was late May, I apologize. And then the subject property will be identified in the official zoning map as a conditional use zone. So this is the exact language that the applicant has proposed. And I would like to clarify that I had put together a packet that was at your seats this evening that outlines the applicant's proposal, the planning board proposals, and then a couple other tweaks that we have made. I know there was a lot in the packet. There were some last minute changes happening, so I wanted you to have it right there in front of you, so you had it right there. So this is initiated to include, again, both the residential and non-residential districts, and it's allowed in any of the zoning districts other than open space. The next section of the 211C, application and conditional. So upon approval, all processes and required development review procedures must be followed. So this is a true map amendment. This is not a development approval as per se. So, and the master development plan is not in lieu of a subdivision plat or a major site plan or both. So once you get your rezoning, as if any other conventional zoning, rezoning, you still have to go through all of the processes to move forward with development itself. Further, there was the Appendix A. They have requested to include, currently, as the Appendix A exists in the UDO, it is a table format. It's not very user-friendly at all. And this new proposed format includes more clarification for submittals for each type of application, and all of the different processes that the planning processes, including major site plans, minor site plans, what's allowed in what should be submitted for master development plans and conditional zonings or regular conventional zonings. And currently, there are no requirements for conditional zoning in the Appendix A, only those for a master development plan. So this will include and add a submittal process for conditional zoning itself. Once this was taken to the planning board and they reviewed this language at their regular April 17th meeting, their May 2nd special meeting, and their May 15th regular meeting. There was an existing UDO planning board committee that had been formed that the planning board asked them to take a look at the language that exists, the language that was proposed last year in 23-24, as well as what the applicant has come forward to see if there were any suggestions for additions. They came back to the planning board and offered these lists of different additions. So they wanted to require a pre-application meeting. They wanted to require a technical review committee meeting. They wanted to keep the existing language of 211F, which is the review of the approval of a conditional zoning district. They wanted to include the requirement of 20% open space. if there were any major modifications to the master development plan after the required input meeting, they would go back to the planning board for a new recommendation to the Board of Aldermen for approval. And then for the changes in Appendix A, they wanted to ensure that stormwater was a list of required elements included on the conditional application. They wanted to make sure that there was a development schedule or phasing plan as part of the master development plan, and that they wanted to require that the detailed utility plans must be made available at the time of application of a major subdivision preliminary plat. That last bullet is not directly related to the conditional zoning, but it is something that exists in our ordinance that we feel would be better off at the time of submittal. We had all of the plans so that during our technical review committee meetings, we would be able to let the engineers and our public works department take a look at everything at once prior to an approval, rather than coming in later and doing their approvals. So again, this is the language that was brought forward by the planning board. Sections A and B, there were no changes. C, you can see that they've added the pre-application meeting at 1. 3 would be the addition of a technical review committee. And then at 4, at the very end of the 4, which speaks of the public input meeting, it's that any changes to the master development plan would be taken back to the planning board if it was a major use. So that'd be difference in density, allowable uses. Those were the types of things that would be triggering those, or that change. And then they would take that back to the Board of Aldermen. And then the last one is adding section E, which is the review of approval of the conditional zoning district. So this is existing language, and it states that the planning board may examine projects to ensure that they are progressing as they would after 3 years. If they feel that there is a reason to believe that they are not meeting certain milestones, they can ask staff to bring a report and see where the progress is, and then report that to the Board of Aldermen to see if there's any needed additional work that needs to be taken care of. This next slide, and it shows, I'm just going to show the areas where the recommended changes are listed. Again, since the Appendix A is being expanded to the full edition. So this next, the first one you're going to see is the master development plan, includes the request for development or phasing plan. And then for the conditional zoning, it's going to include the addition of a stormwater minimum of 20% open space. And then this last one is removing the allowance of the submittal of utility and stormwater plans after preliminary plat approval. So that's just removing that one item so that they would have to supply them at the time of submittal of their preliminary plat. So at this point, we have a new irradiation of this. Development attorney, Mr. Tom Terrell, has offered his opinion that there are several changes to the approval, proposed changes by the planning board that don't meet consistency with 160D. So he would like us to consider removing section 211C4, which is requiring the master development plan to go back to the planning board after changes, and removing 211E with the entire section, which is the review and approval of a conditional zoning district after the 3 years to see if it was progressing. So those were the two ones that were removed. The pre-application meeting is definitely going to stay. The TRC meeting is not necessary since they would be required at the planning preliminary plat or the major site plan approval. It can be added in. That's no harm, but we did take it out in this last text amendment that you have in your packet, and this is shown here. So it would be kind of a mix of a hybrid of what the applicant has proposed and what the planning board has proposed. So with that, I will entertain any questions that you may have. Like I said, Mr. Terrell is here and the applicant as well. If there are any questions. Thank you.
Just to be clear, for those that don't know, our development attorney is Tom Terrell, and he has gone over this and made recommendations. So I think it would be wise for us to take those recommendations into consideration for this and to approve it even on the 23rd when we vote. Without those recommendations would not be wise.
I'm going to ask Mr. Terrell to speak, please, on the topic.
Thank you, Mayor Alt. Most of you have no idea who I am. I'm Tom Terrell. I have been doing this for 40 years. Was one of the, in fact, I chaired the committee that drafted Chapter 160D for 4 of 6 years. Mr. Alt, is your question, why do I have the opinions that there are some statutory inconsistencies or?
It is, sir. So
Okay.
we have the planning board have made a number of recommendations after a lot of work. And there's some discussion about some of those discussion things.
It was very clear to me that the planning board worked hard on this. That jumped out at me as I was reading all of the written reports, and I see exactly what the planning board was trying to achieve. That's no issue there. I was pleased that they saw value in a pre-application meeting. I think that's already required. The issue I had with the technical review committee, of course, you're going to have the TRC anyway in some form or another, but that it potentially, if this is adopted tonight, it would put the large project that's before this board potentially out of compliance. That was where I got some heartburn because it did not go precisely through the wording on that. I did have very specific issues with 3 other items. I'm going to read, the first one is changes in the master plan resulting from public input that creates a major modification to the proposal must be sent back to the planning board for a subsequent recommendation to the Board of Aldermen. Answering this on 2 levels. First, anytime you do something that's noticed to the public, you have to take that to the public or something that's less than that. And if you change the boundaries, change the intensity, change what is there in any appreciable way that is more intense, then in North Carolina, you already have to go back. So that is already there. My concern, though, on that was that statutes don't allow you to define major modification. You can do it with a development agreement, but the general statutes only allow you to define what is a minor modification. It also, and that is, if you want to look that up, that's 160D-403D. And this was kind of a backwards way of doing that. There are some vested rights issues in 160D-108.1 that get into modifications that there is potentially some conflicting language. The primary issue here is that this puts the planning board in a position where the statute says staff makes these initial determinations. And it was it was elevating the role of the planning board beyond what the statutes allow it to do in 160D-301, if anyone wants to look at that. On item E1, 2 comments on that. One, the operative words were firm plans. That was a little bit problematic because you can, and I'm looking at a journalist here, a plan can be an intention or a plan could be something specific in writing. There are different meanings here, but it was elevating the planning board to being, and E2 gets into this into being an enforcement body. The planning board has no enforcement powers under our statutes. So the vague language, and it was creating powers that by statute don't exist. So I'm glad to answer any other questions on that issue. Thank you.
Just for clarification, if something like that were to happen and we were to be sued, what would be the
If,
ramifications?
absolutely. There's a statute, it's an attorney fee statute, in fact. It's General Statute 6-21.7 that says very clearly if a local government exceeds the unambiguous limits of its authority, anybody who brings an action has their attorney fees paid. The city would have to pay that. North Carolina is still what is called a Dillon's rule state. The city has only those powers that are granted expressly by the legislature, and with the exception of some inherent powers to fulfill those express powers, but you can't create your own. And that would be when you start creating your own, that crosses a line and puts you at risk.
So the 25 words or less thing is, you're recommending that we remove those things to reduce that liability risk because the statutes don't allow for it. But a number of the other recommendations from the planning board are good.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Are there any questions from the board, Mr. Terrell? Because I have the opportunity to talk to him often, so. I'm sorry. Okay. Is there a public comment? Is there anybody who wants to speak on that, ma'am?
Miss Brooke Rudd.
Good evening. First, I would like to thank each of you for your time and your dedication to our city and all of the matters that do come before you and us as residents, as well as business owners. It is an awesome responsibility that is not to be taken lightly. I know that when you are not here in this room, that you do not stop thinking about the things before you. Many different things course through my mind at this moment. We've all heard lots of things this evening. And now before us, we are talking about planning and zoning. Under 25 words. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words cannot hurt me. Originated at about 1862-ish. Words matter. They matter deeply, whether it is about one specific thing or another. They carry weight. They gain attention. They are spoken and they cannot be retracted. Once they are out into the open, they are there. So as you consider these items of zoning, all items before you, please understand the unintentional consequences of words spoken and written and how they can adversely affect everyone or how they can positively affect everyone. As a second generation business owner in this community, I'm deeply vested. And while I am not at every meeting, it is because our elected officials, we have entrusted each and every one of you to do the jobs that you do daily, to speak on behalf and in sync with your constituents. So as you speak, as you take the microphone, as you converse in the community on any and all topics, please note how the words where initially was spoken that they cannot break my bones back in the day to offset young children from being bullied. the detrimental or the very positive rewards from the proper words spoken are key. Just now, gentleman spoke about compliance. He said the very word, there are words that are important. So in all avenues and all facets, as a business owner, as a once young child who ran wild on the streets and loved every minute of it, and as a person who will grow old, I hope, and will have my final moments in this community as my father did when we had dates down at the riverfront and sat on the bench and got a hot dog from the trolley stop because that's what he liked, hot dogs, even on Thanksgiving. The story that can be told from this town, whether you've lived here your entire life or you're a day into it or you're visiting, it all matters. Kindness matters, consideration matters. And again, I want to thank you all for your time that you dedicate. But please also think about how things are packaged and presented, because while your heart may be pure and in the right place, it can be greatly misunderstood. So as you continue with the conversations about zoning, which we entrust that will be in the best interest of our city, of the constituents, because that's how you have been elected as guardians, and to take that responsibility not lightly. I want to thank you for allowing me to speak and address the body. And that's all I have to say. Thank you, sir. And thank you, Alderman. And thank you, city officials.
Madam Clerk.
Mr. Terry Pierce.
I don't think I'm going to make any changes in opinion with conditional zoning, but what I wanted to do is, as you go to voting on this to get conditional zoning in place, think of the impact we have on citizens. Right now, the TIA that we have is effectively saying, we've got a pile of stuff that's 300 seconds delays. You know, if you think about engineers and attorneys and doctors and lawyers and all these people in town here that are needing to get places, you pay their rate at 5 minutes a whack, you know, for all these delays, that's 10 minutes a day. You know, think about how costly that can be. What we're dealing with is, if you look at the county transportation plan, the section of 12th on to 87th 133 is a 12,300 vehicle per day capacity. The measurement we have at the, just a little bit south of the funeral home has us at 27,500 vehicles per day annual average daily capacity in 2021. The high year was 2018 at 29,000. The TIA Appendix A has the capacity of the proposed developments at 93,009. So we're going to be 260% or more of capacity on that section of road. So it's incumbent upon all of us, business owners, all the elected officials, attorneys that represent us, to get on the phone and get with the DOT and get people motivated to be thinking about that 4-laning that's in the county transportation plan for down the road, but clearly is a funding issue. You know, Frank Idler and all those need to have their phones being rung off the hook to get Southport a proper capability of handling. And what, you know, they've not done a great job with Indigo Phase 1. And so there's a good chance that this Indigo Phase 2 is going to be just dandy, but not with the road we have. And so that's where we all have to come in, step up, and make changes. And we appreciate you guys listening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share.
That's all.
Normally, the answer to your question is no, but this topic has been hot for 4 years, and it would serve nobody any good to say no to you at this point. Go right ahead.
since she doesn't have it. My name's Clark Frazione, 758 Skipjack Circle. I was at the public information meeting. I thought it was very good, very informative. A lot of the materials in the agenda were very good in helping to understand an issue that I wasn't really involved with before. I think the conditional zoning makes sense. The key to conditional zoning is that what's offered up is at least as good as what you would normally zone, but it's tailored to the property and what you want to do. The presentation that was made was that the open space, green space, would be 40%. And what's now being presented is 20%. They are allowed to count the jurisdictional areas, the harbor, a lot of areas I don't think normally would be counted as open space because they're not truly available. I just can't go into the marina and do what I want. So I think they need to be held to that 40% that was presented at the public information meeting. That's it. Thank you.
All right, I would entertain a motion to close public hearing.
So move.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. I will now entertain a motion to go into public hearing on the development agreement of Waterway Community.
So move.
Any discussion? Not hearing. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Mr. Terrell and Ms. Meehan, you've worked out your game plan here?
Mostly, yes.
Okay.
So I was just going to introduce the process, and then if there were any questions that were for Mr. Terrell, he's here available. So local governments have the authority to enter into the development agreements pursuant to sections 160D, 1001 through 1012 of the general statutes. Development agreements can be a beneficial tool for the developers and the local governments because they involve the commitments and time of private capital as well as public resources. The agreement between the city and the Waterway of Southport outlines specifics of a conditional zoning application, including the subject properties, obligation of annexation, term limits of the agreement, permitted uses and architectural standards, density intensity, traffic impacts, environmental protections, public access and recreation, public facilities, property owner associations and restrictions, and laws governing the development and other miscellaneous provisions. You have had time to review it. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can, and also Mr. Terrell is here as well.
Alderman Davis, did you have a question?
Not a question. I just want to point out that all of this is on our website. The packet that the things that you're seeing on the whiteboard that you may not be able to read very well, the conditional zoning.
This is on the website.
Everything. I mean,
It's
what we're talking about
955
right now, the
pages.
development agreement, this is all pretty intensely dense language. And I can't imagine how you're following it without something to look at, but you can go home and look at it.
Robert?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Because I had a couple of questions that had not been previously addressed yesterday with the knowledge and support of the mayor. I had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Chad Paul and Mr. McKay Siegel, representatives of the Waterway Project. And my questions were specific to a couple of items within the development agreement. And I wanted to just bring those up because they heard me and were thought that that was something that we could do. And it's consistent with our community. And it's not annexation. It's not the big ticket items that are in the development agreement, but it's long-term things that are sort of near and dear to our community. One of those being that native plantings, versus non-natives. And they had for landscaping and buffering, there was language that said varieties that thrive in native soils. Well, when we talked about it, they said, yeah, change that. Change it to read that they are native plants and So that change, they were wholeheartedly supportive of. And also on page 9 in Exhibit D in the architectural guidelines, adding a second bullet point. As most of you know, if you know about our lighting ordinance or our street light ordinance, that we specifically use skies compliant fixtures because of the environment. It's important to our environment. And so in their lighting and their guidelines, their architectural guidelines, they had one lighting bullet. And so they were encouraged me to add a second bullet that says all exterior fixtures shall meet International Dark Skies Association standards and will have a color temperature of 3,000 degrees Kelvin or less. So that is consistent with our community, and I'm very appreciative for that participation and entertaining those conversations. So I appreciate you.
Any other comments? Mr. Terrell, could you take the microphone, please?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
I don't know how many development agreements I've done since they were possible in 2005, but I've done quite a few of large projects. It makes me extremely nervous when we make changes at the last minute because there are so many cross references. The language has to be precise for enforcement. I have looked at this. Mr. Paul shared it with me. The key issue here, I think this is just perfectly fine. It would not create mischief, is that we have a motion at the appropriate time to change that language. And in fact, if you changed your mind and voted tonight, you could add it tonight and over the next week, add it in and everybody agreed that this is how you verbalized the motion.
Yeah, went ahead, I gave that specifically to him and for y'all want to do it. Ms. Mosteller, dark skies, all that's dark skies. The two recommendations he made part when we talked about the spirit intent, what we're going to do anyway. We're happy to change that.
So Counselor, would it be better so that the document that we talk about on the 23rd is complete, that we do a motion to include that language and have the lawyers put that into the works?
Is this under the assumption you wanted to go and do something tonight?
No, under the assumption that if we vote on the changing of the words tonight, that when we vote on the 23rd, the words are already there, as opposed to making a motion on the 23rd, and then we have to go back after that before anybody can sign anything. This way, it'll all be done.
Sure, I think for the transparency portion of it, so that everybody knows that's included, when you guys do vote on the 23rd, you can go and make that motion.
Okay. We'll get, yeah, yes, and so I'll get to that in just a minute. Did you have a question?
So I would like to make a motion to amend the language in the development agreement as stated, I stated previously.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. And I'll leave it to Mr. Terrell to work on that. Mr. Terrell, I have a question for you, if you could take the thing. So when this was first presented, the planning board got a draft of this whole thing, and it was a draft, and I think they all understood that.
Yes.
But, and they pointed out something that we had been talking about, but they may not have known that, and it was a good catch. And that is the words in the annexation part. And so the words in the annexation part have been changed since the draft went to the planning board to make it clearer when the annexation would take place and how it would take place. And Mr. Terrell, could you kind of address that, please?
I would be glad to address that. If it was the planning board that caught it, they did a very good job. I know that you and Mr. Carroll have spent inordinate hours on one or two paragraphs in the last several weeks. But if I could pull this up here, we're dealing with Article 3. If anyone wants to find this online, Article 3 is the annexation section of the agreement. The question, I think, was, does this project have to be annexed at the beginning, or are there little loopholes or catches by which it can get entitled, but the annexation doesn't occur for 1, 5, 10, 15, or 20 years? We have written this to make sure that the trigger points for annexation all occur early in the process so that no buildings come up. That's what is defined as the vertical construction until a petition for annexation has appropriately been filed. Now, prior to that time, they will do what is called the horizontal construction, and that would be approved and completed in the county. No developer is going to do horizontal and leave it at that, not to do the vertical. And we also have the site plan as a trigger. The site plan requires, you have to have this, the site plan recorded. That's a trigger. And also, in addition to defining all these points in some detail, if you don't know, the plat itself, the final plat has to say in large capital letters, this land is subject to annexation by the city of Southport. Every single deed is required to say in large capitalized letters, this property, this lot is subject to an agreement to be annexed by the city of Southport. To my satisfaction, we have clarified that, and this property will soon be, or portions of it sequentially, will be annexed into the city and will not be languishing out there in the county.
Does anybody from the board have a question for Mr. Terrell?
I just have a request for the public's purpose. I don't know if everybody understands what it is, what this thing is we're talking about. It is a development agreement between the city and the developer. And if you would talk about what that is and the process that gets us to the point where we are tonight, having a public hearing and then voting in 10 days on it, because this has been going on a long time. We thought we had one before, what was it, a year and a half, 2 years ago. And I've heard a good bit about, oh, we're not doing things transparently. How did this suddenly happen and so forth? And to be clear, this board designated Alderman Carroll and Mayor Alt way back in, it seems like 10 years ago, I believe it was January, to work with Attorney Terrell, who's an expert in this, to come up with an agreement with the developer that gets as much for this city as we possibly can. So will you talk about what a development agreement is?
Thank you for that opportunity. The first development agreements were made possible in 2005 by legislation passed by the General Assembly, and they were actually pushed for by both the private side developers and municipalities and counties who needed extra tools for large, complicated projects. The biggest issue at that time, and if y'all remember, in the mid-O's, there were subdivisions were going up. This was back when money was almost handed by banks just for the fun of it. And the issues were utilities. And cities had to have capital improvement plans. They had to know when they were going to be investing in water lines, sewer lines, road capacity and things. And if you had a large scale project that was going to be extending over 15 or 20 years, a development agreement was something that we did not have prior to that time, and it was a vehicle by which you could create. I used the word trigger point a moment ago. Should probably have saved the term for right now. At what point is that developer obligated to bond the project? At what point is the city required to change its capital improvement plan? At what point? Because we have something happening over a long period of time, and it gave both public and private a lot more confidence that they could go through with complicated large-scale projects. It has been, I will tell you, I've lost count of the number of projects I've done with development agreements, quite a few. They tend to be large and complicated. In every single case, there has been a better product for both sides because we had a development agreement tool to use. I think the mayor and Mr. Carroll have learned that they were not being honored by being asked to be on this committee. It's very time consuming to deal with the details. It would surprise you what you have to nail down, the questions you have to raise and answer and address. But this agreement, while it may seem simple in some ways, actually has a lot of thought behind it, and you will benefit from it as this goes forward into the future.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Terrell? Mr. Terrell, I just have one comment. It's actually, I'm sorry. Could you clarify something? I'm sorry, it's on the other topic. It's the CZ. The fact that if the city, if this board votes to enact a CZ conditional zoning text language, the city is not required, based on that language, to give it to everybody who just comes through the door. Is that correct?
That is 100% correct. They are all legislative decisions, and in your legislative discretion, you may deny any one of them that comes to you. You may approve anyone that comes to you.
So it's not precedent setting for the next guy up? It's not precedent setting for the next guy
It's not
up?
precedential at all.
Okay, thank you. Robert, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to take a moment just to kind of talk about this experience for me. And Tom, you're correct. This was not an honor. But looking back, I am so proud of this board, getting to know McKay on a personal level, Chad and Roger, and their intentions with this development. We're very fortunate because it could be really, really bad. Could be somebody who doesn't have the same values that we have. Alderman Mosteller's comments seem simple, but they're not. That's who we are as a community. That's what's important to us. So they've taken every single thing that we've taken in, brought to them. They've taken it into consideration. They've come back. There's been compromise. And so I am very much in favor of both of these two things. So on the 23rd, I'll be voting yes. I'm very excited. I believe the rest of this board feels the same way. And so, Mr. Mayor and everybody else, thank you. McKay, Chad, thank you. Tom, you killed it. Thank you.
And just to follow up on Alderman Carroll's statement, as pointed out, the board voted to select two people, and it was Robert and myself to do that. And as you go into negotiations on these things, you do not post them on the billboard going out of town. Because this is a negotiation for a contract. This is a contract, and in all contracts, you do those conversations with the entire board. So the board was constantly updated about where we were. There were stop points in which the two of us would go back and say, this is where we think we want to go. Do you concur with that? And then we would move on to the next step. So it was a fully collaborative effort. Lots of good input that gave the two of us ideas to go forward with. And that's how those programs put together. Any other comments?
I feel like I need to say something just because of the background here. I was outspoken against Indigo Phase 2 as it was presented before.
about conditional zoning as it was presented before. I have sat through multiple closed sessions with our attorneys and with the mayor and Robert, who painstakingly with the attorneys went over line by line what we have in front of us now. Through that process, I saw how this could benefit Southport by bringing Indigo Phase 2 into our corporate city limits. I think it's very important to mention that I do agree that we have the benefit of what I would call good developers in this plan. I think that the heart of Southport is being kept in mind in this agreement, and I appreciate that. The conditional zoning, I see the benefit for it here. I had a very, very hard time getting there, and I want to be very clear about that. I think that we're happy with this agreement, and I don't want to color that any other way. But I think that we were left without as many choices as we may have wanted to make when we lost our ETJ. I am thankful for McKay and for Chad for coming to us and being so open with where we ended up, because it could have gone a very, very different way. And I think that the conditional zoning in this case allows us to bring what is now waterways into Southport corporate limits and to make sure that we are, that we have the tax base that comes from that rather than a leach just outside of our city limits. So I feel really good about where this is. I didn't love the ETJ going away and the ability to negotiate some of that. But at the end of the day, I think that we are in a good position here, and I'm thankful for the conversation that happened to get us here. So I just wanted to put that out on the table. Thank you.
So this is actually public comment. So Madam Clerk, is there anybody who has public comment on this?
There is not.
Okay,
I'd like
go
to.
right ahead, ma'am.
As staff stated in our packet, to create a process that allows flexibility and encourages quality projects that cannot be considered or built with conventional zoning districts, staff brought forth a request to add conditional zoning for residential to the UDO over 2.5 years ago. And the fact that we are here now, of course, I've always supported conditional zoning because I think it gives us an opportunity to create a development that looks like the rest of Southport. I live in the old area of Southport, and right now our conventional zoning that we have in the UDO will not allow neighborhoods to be built like the neighborhood I live in that we consider precious to Southport. So I'm excited about finally having conditional zoning. I think this gives us an opportunity to look at individual projects and their merits. A lot of municipalities now only use conditional zoning, and it has been that way for a while. So I just want to say I'm excited, and it's been a long journey, and I appreciate y'all coming along with us.
You know, I live in Kern Indigo, and Waterways will be our neighbor. If Waterways is developed, and I'm sure it will be, the way Kern Indigo was developed and Bald Head Island was developed, we've got a gem out there. We can't ask for more. Now, most of that property is out there in the county. That could have developed 100 counties, what, that 7,500 zoning? That would have been just lovely. We've got what I think is a great opportunity here. I think it's being done right. I have all the faith that the company will do it right, and I think it's going to benefit the city a great deal in the long run.
Nothing prolific here. I don't seem to have anything prolific these days. Chad, thank you for your loyalty to Southport. You weren't always treated well in this process. And I appreciate you sticking with us because you're the last opportunity we got to save ourselves. And you could have gone and you could have done anything you wanted to, but you stayed loyal to Southport. When you introduced yourself, you told me about knowing Colonel Burns. Most people in this room don't even know who that is. I knew at least you knew Southport and the heritage. And I appreciate you sticking with Southport when many people before us didn't quite treat y'all well. So thank you so much.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to come out of closed session. I'm sorry. Yes. I had to say a motion to come out of public hearing. My apologies.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any conversation? Not hearing any. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. I'm going to need a little help with this one. I entertain a motion to go back into public hearing for the conditioning zoning map amendment, which is, so I need a motion to do that.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any conversation? Not hearing any. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Mo, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Turn off. There it goes. Thank you. Yep. Thank you again, Mayor and Board of Aldermen. This evening, this is a conditional zoning map amendment. It's an applicant-initiated zoning map amendment. And prior to the final decision, it's a legislative decision. There must be a duly advertised public hearing. So this is a conditional rezoning map amendment from R10 and planned unit development to conditional zoning 01. This proposal includes 19 lots within the city limits and is approximately 47 acres in size. Again, I mentioned that it's zoned R10 and planned unit development. On this map, the purple is the planned unit development, which is within the existing Indigo Plantation subdivision. And then the yellow is the R10 areas, which is right off of 9th Street, you'll see. The future land use map is designated as medium density residential, which has a recommendation of approximately 4 dwelling units per acre. This is a vicinity map for you, so you can see where the vacant property off of 9th Street is existing across the street from the elementary school. There are some existing homes that are within this area, and this property will be accessed from the county side of the property. You also have the parking lot off of Indigo Plantation Drive, which is across from where the townhomes are existing now for some vicinity, and then the marina, which is at the end of Indigo Plantation Drive. This is just a closer look at the vicinity. This is kind of hard on this screen to see, but the areas that are outlined in purple are the areas, and it also outlines the wetlands in the area. And if you go to, what is that, to the east, I believe that's Cottage Creek that you'll see, and then the Indigo Plantation. Or no, I'm sorry. Cottage Point, not Cottage Creek. I apologize. Sorry, Sue. All right, so for the conditional zoning regulations, the applicant is required to submit a master development plan that will include the permitted uses, standards, and conditions. This is the master development plan that was proposed and included in the application with their narrative. This is a bubble diagram. It's the big picture of what things are. It does not provide exact placement of where things will be lots will be existing, but given an idea of where certain types of development will be in the proposal. So area A, which is the purple or magenta color on the map, is the marina area. And that's going to be, that's approximately 21 acres, and that's going to be your non-residential or mixed use portion of the project. Moving up into the kind of reddish color, you've got a waterfront village, and that will be all consistent of multifamily Those would be condos and multifamily. And then area C in the orange melon colors on the map, those are going to be your residential village areas. So that'll be a mix of townhomes, duplexes, and single-family homes. The project itself includes a total of 199 units, dwelling units, 10,000 square feet of non-residential uses, and a max of 4.2 dwelling units per acre. So this is some of their dimensional requirements that are part of the requirement for the narrative itself. So areas A and B, which is the marina and the waterfront village, that is going to be the 160 of the dwelling units will be in those areas, where 39 of the units will be within the residential village to the north. So some of the dimensional requirements that they have outlined here, you've got your different, development standards for your lot sizes, your lot sizes, lot widths, and heights on this page. So you can see that their average height is around 40 feet. The non-residential can go to 45, and the multifamily can go up to 55 feet if they have a pitched roof. This proposal also includes a cluster design, which will be included in the area of the northern portion of the residential village area. And again, this is across from the county property, or adjacent to the county property, and it will be accessed through the county property when it is finished. So these are going to be cluster designs. They're going to have smaller lot sizes and reduced setbacks for those areas. Those will be single-family homes. The next information we've got, they had outlined their parking. The minimum parking standards are outlined in the packet and on your screen. They do offer a parking study if they feel that there may be a need or a want to, if these parking standards that have been provided may not be appropriate, they can come in and see if there's another appropriate type of parking or number of parking spaces or type of parking spaces to be considered rather than what is listed in this parking requirement outline. It outlines the pedestrian facilities as well, so there will be sidewalks on at least one side of the road throughout this portion of the project. And again, remember, this is just considering the city parcels. This is not the large whole property that would be considered in the development agreement. So this map amendment is just for the city property. This next slide shows the landscape and buffers. So there will be buffers on areas that are adjacent to properties that are not within the project area itself. Again, there will be a minimum of a 20% open space to be provided. That is 9.4, about 9.5 acres, but they have provided 13 acres at this point. So it will be above that. And I apologize. So then this is the bubble diagram. That's kind of a quick run through. I'm happy to answer any questions. The planning board did recommend approval of this conditionally with the heights lowered. That would bring the maximum for residential to 40 feet and the maximum of non-residential uses to 30 feet.
Are there any questions from the board? If not, is there any, Madam Clerk, did anybody sign up for public comment?
No, sir.
All right. In that case, I'll entertain a motion. Do you have a motion to come out of closed session? Yeah. I'll apologize. To come out of public comment. There's a motion and a second. Is there any comment? Not hearing any. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. I will poll the board right now. Do you need a break or do you want to muscle through? They should be. The next agenda item is a discussion by for a major subdivision preliminary plat for Deep Point Marina. Mo, you have the floor, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. This next item is a request from Pelican Real Property, Bald Head Limited, and Bald Head Transportation for a major subdivision preliminary plat. I'll wake up here in a minute. So a preliminary plat is an administrative decision. Therefore, if all standards are met, then the subdivision should be recommended for approval. This subdivision is not as typical as a major subdivision because all of the infrastructure, the access to the property and utilities are installed and existing. So this is really just a request for a property subdivision, and there is no development or proposals associated with this subdivision of land. So the property is Deep Point Marina. It's located at 1301 Ferry Road. There was an exempt plat to subdivide the large parcel into two in 2020. And there was also a planned building group in 2007, which is when the roadways were approved and all of the utilities and the existing development as it stands. So they zoned as business district, and they are adjacent to the Landing subdivision and the State Ferry. These two applications must go through this preliminary plat process because they do not meet the subdivision exemption requirements in the statutes, and they do not meet our definition of a minor subdivision. So the first application is subdivision 2501. This is for land only, and this is for the property by Pelican Real Property. Is approximately an 18-acre portion that you can see the highlighted section that will be divided into 3 parcels, which include tract 1, 3, and 6 for approximately 19-20 acres. There are some discrepancies in the acreage with the surveys that were provided due to the changing mean high waters over the years. So that's the discrepancies we have here. And then the second one is for the Bald Head Limited and Bald Head Transportation. And this application is approximately 52 acres. It's the larger portion, and it will be subdivided into 6 parcels. And those are tracts 2, 4, 5, 7, 8, and 9. Again, this is just a property division. There's no property or developments with this recommendation. So the planning board recommended approval to the Board of Aldermen according with the standards and processes laid out in the Unified Development Ordinance.
I'd like to make a motion to support the recommendations from the planning board to approve Deep Point's major subdivision preliminary plat for both projects, SUB-2501 and SUB-2502.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any conversation? I'm just going to make some points of education. As most or many people know, that's where the ferry comes in. And we know that there's an ongoing battle about the ferry and the terminal, who's going to own it, who's going to do it. So to ensure that nothing was going to be done that was going to interfere with that, the chairman of the North Carolina Bald Head Ferry Authority, whatever that real name is, has been contacted, as well as a Southport representative to the ferry authority, to ensure that they saw no problems if this land was separated from the property that will eventually be used for the terminal, that this will not cause a problem one side or the other. So I want to throw that out, that we had done that, the board had done that due diligence. So any other comments? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous. The next one, Mo, is you'll have to explain what the difference is. For the major subdivision preliminary plat for SUB 2502. Did we do that all?
Yes, those were combined.
Okay, so we're We're at 9. Okay. Major subdivision, final plat for Deep Point.
Yes, thank you. This is a unique situation. Deep Point Marina is requesting their final plat approval for the preliminary plat subdivisions that just came through. Since this is just a division of land, usually after a preliminary plat approval, the subdivision or the site plan would then go and have their infrastructure installed and make sure that everything is properly installed and inspected, and then come forward for their final plat. Since there are all of these utilities existing, they are able to come forward this evening for their final plat so they can get this recorded. So they do meet all of the UDO requirements for this final plat, and staff are recommending approval.
Again, I'd like to make a motion and in support of the recommendation from the planning board. I make a motion to approve the final plat for Deep Point Marina SUB-2501 and SUB-2502 based on conformance with the approved preliminary plats and with the applicable standards of the City of Southport's Unified Development Ordinance.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any conversation? Not hearing. All in favor, say aye, please. Any opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much. The next thing on the agenda is the committee reports, the ABC board. Frank, how are we doing?
The ABC board had another robust month. It's not seriously. Yeah, no, it was quite another good month. We look forward to another good month coming up here shortly. The next meeting is this coming Wednesday. So things keep moving along.
I was happy to see that the ABC board is taking the opportunity to take some educational classes as well. So that's a good thing.
That's correct. We suggested to the manager it might be a sound idea.
Okay.
Did they have a lottery last week? Is that what that was? No. They had a line out the door for some reason.
Are we doing committee appointments on the 23rd as well?
No, we're going to do those on the first Monday in July.
What day is that? 7? Is it like a 7th or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. The manager's report?
I have committee report.
Okay. Okay, ma'am, go ahead.
Yep, certainly. Parks and Recreation Committee asked that I remind everybody that the movies on the lawn are underway. June 13th at 8:30, it's going to be Mufasa, and the lawn is the lawn over here in front of the Fort Johnston. Mothers in Step is going to have a meet and greet at Franklin Square Park on June the 14th. Summer Day Camp is full to the brim. It's in, and every now and then somebody goes on vacation for a week or something. And so if you want to get your kids in, make sure that they have your name on your kids' names. And then a reminder that children's games will be on the waterfront park on July the 3rd, starting at 9 o'clock.
Is there any other committee reports? Okay.
I just want to mention the 4th of July Festival Committee is rearing to go right now. We just finalized our calendar. It's on the website, and you will be seeing the 4th of July magic unfolding before your very eyes here very soon.
I thought who they're having for the Grand Marshal was interesting. It's at Bowling Springs. It's Chimney Rock. We're bringing the mayor of Chimney Rock in because all the devastation in that area. So as a tribute to all of them, we're using him as a representative. I thought that was an interesting thing to do. Manager's report?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Myself and Alderman Davis had the opportunity to complete the Fire Department Citizens Academy this past Tuesday. So it was a great opportunity we had to, even though we know a lot about the fire department, it was great to continue to get that deep dive with the other residents and continue the great work that recognize the continued work that the fire department does. So it was a great experience. So I encourage anyone who has not had the opportunity to attend the Citizens Academy to sign up for that great opportunity when it comes back around. Secondly, in the coming weeks, I will be starting a new video series, myself and other city employees, to keep the transparency going and to let the residents know what's going on around the city. So we'll have regular updates on what's happening around the city with different projects and anything that would be of interest to the community to know throughout the next several weeks. And then this coming Tuesday, the 17th at 5 here in the community building, I will be hosting our second business roundtable to recognize our city businesses and continue to work in conjunction with them to how we can continue to support them and bring them into the conversation as has been discussed this evening as well, contributing to our businesses and allowing our businesses to have a good platform to represent the city and incorporate them in what we do. So we look forward to hearing from them and moving forward in that. So that's all I have.
Okay, the mayor's comments. I want to compliment Tom Stanley and his crews because we had so much discussion about stormwater. People contact us about little smaller stormwater issues that can actually be fixed by our staff. And I call the manager, and within a day, Tom Stanley's people have gotten it fixed. So just terrific working with the public on that. I want to thank the manager and Mo. We went through some hoops this morning and this afternoon to get the packages together because of language changes and legal changes and how that was all going to work. And it was a pretty busy day all day long, making sure that was going to happen. Board comments. We'll start with Alderman Mosteller. Alderman Carroll. Alderman Davis.
Yes, on Saturday, June the 21st, is the it's called Juneteenth, the Juneteenth celebration. And it's at Cavanis Park, midday, food trucks, speeches, music, good community fellowship. And if you don't know what Juneteenth is, of course, you'll find out if you go, but in 25 words or less, it is the day that the people of Galveston, Texas, found out that 2 years earlier, the Emancipation Proclamation had been signed and the slaves had been freed. That was the westernmost outpost of slave states. So it's called Juneteenth, amalgamation of when it was and the date. So come, everybody's welcome.
Alderman Kelly.
The Freedom Run is June 28th. It's our 5K through Southport for the 4th of July Festival. The 4th of July Festival is actually a long one this year. It kicks off about a week before the actual 4th of July. So we've got the run that morning, and I believe the fireman's competition is that afternoon as well. Opening ceremonies are the Friday before on the 27th. So check the calendar. It'll be in the paper as well. But lots of activities starting for the 4th of July Festival. But you still have time to sign up for the Freedom Run, and it starts at 7:30 right down here at the waterfront. So don't forget to do that. Thank you very much.
Alderman Spencer.
Won't waste too much of my breath because it doesn't seem to matter. I want to wish my wife a happy birthday. I can't wait to go home and see her. I'm thankful for her. So the big bully has come. They've taken our lunch money once again. We've kicked the can down the road. We haven't faced the angry mob to take care of our bills, to protect the interest of Southport. Every time somebody from our neighborhood, our community outside the city limits comes and tells us what we're supposed to do with our finances. And now we're stuck again. So I guess we're waiting for another election so we can find a board that will have the political will to stand up for Southport and the citizens of Southport. I guess we have to wait until then until we can have some courage.
Alderman Lay.
Just one thing, when I was looking at the agenda package and whatnot, I thought, that's a bit much for me to sit there and look at on this small computer. So I asked the city manager if he could run me a hard copy. I forgot how much 969 pounds of paper weigh. So I went and picked it up and immediately had to go buy myself a back brace. And I went through this thing. I can't tell you how many hours, but my wife was very unhappy with me at 2:00 in the morning when I'm still out there reading this with the cat. So thank you, Noah.
This was amazing. 2 hours and 10 minutes. The sun has not set yet, and I thought we were going to be here to at least midnight. So thank you, board. Thank you, citizens. It all worked out well. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Is the motion second? Any conversation? If not, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? We stand adjourned.